All right, so I wanted to record this for all of my fellow construction workers, blue collar workers, anyone that's getting their hands dirty every single day. I mean, if you're a white collar worker and you want to get out of your grind that you're doing right now and you're not happy, you know, by all means, this is for you too. But I'm a blue collar guy. I grew up with a father that was blue collar. He basically didn't even talk to me about college because it wasn't in my future financially for him, but also that's not how he was raised. And he basically had told me at a young age, like, you got to learn a trade. So he had a construction company. I ended up starting working for him. I was swinging one of these guys here, one of these hammers, which we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But that's what I thought my destiny was going to be. You know, I didn't think college was for me. I wasn't good in school, barely graduated, terrible test taker. I was good at learning, but not learning in a book. And that really kind of hurt me and also made me have low confidence, or I guess low self-esteem when it came to that. Like, I'd be embarrassed to figure out a problem in class, or I'd be embarrassed. I'd be even embarrassed. Here's another part of this story. I was even embarrassed once I got out of high school and I wasn't going to college. But I was making money because I started working at about 20. I started working for my father's construction company. And that's where this thing comes in. And that was my future. That's what I thought my future was. I'm going to actually sit down here. I'm in the back deck right now just having a cup of coffee with my dogs. You might see them running around here. But I'm just going to sit this thing down. But the other day I was actually sitting down right here, actually, and I was thinking to myself, I was looking around and I'm like, wow, Scott, like, man, like, I mean, again, I'm not doing this to show off or anything, but I'm like sitting here and I'm like, Scott, like, look you've got a brick home. Like, Scott, if you could go back and you were thinking to yourself, wait a minute, you're 20 years old. Can you ever imagine yourself having a brick home? And I would be like, no. Like, I never thought I would be able to imagine that. Like, living in this beautiful community that I'm part of. I live on a pond. Like, here's my pond, right, in the backyard. I've got a beautiful dog. Where are you, Maisie? There you are. And I've got two dogs. Actually, Brody's in the house. He's a puggle. And again, not showing this to like show off, because I don't think I'm like this multi-millionaire, right? That's just sitting on his yacht. No, but I do think now, looking back, man, like, I never would have imagined I could have what I have, being a blue collar guy, being a guy that swung this thing every single day of his life. But I learned a big lesson, and I've learned a lot of skills with this. I could build right now if I needed to. It's a great asset to have. But this message is really for anyone that, and I want to share like how it all evolved into where I am right now, to where I'm a full-time content creator, a full-time YouTuber. It's something that I've been doing now for over 15 years. I've been self-employed for 20 years. And I kind of wanted to just share how that all happened from someone that never went to college, someone that didn't believe in themselves, had low self-esteem, never thought that I would ever be able to help people build and sell businesses. Like, I've had my hands in so many businesses that have started from zero and went on to sell for millions of dollars because of what I shared. Getting a little ahead of myself, but looking back and reflecting and then saying to myself, like, Scott, why are you not helping other people that have low self-esteem, or that don't have the confidence, or don't think that they can do this YouTube thing? Like, why aren't you helping them? And that's why I started this channel, Live Video School. And so that's the reason why I'm starting this channel. It's a small channel right now, but we're looking to grow that. And again, and I've said this before, if you watch any of my other videos, is that it's not about how big the audience is, it's how loyal the audience is, and how much you can help that audience, even if it's only 1,000 subscribers or 1,000 people. And I actually did a video where I walked through how I was able to get out of my 9-to-5 and my construction job, and how I was able to transition into the online space, over 15 years ago. And I'll share some of that here today, but again, I just wanted to share from me reflecting and going like, holy crap, Scott, like there's people out there right now who are in their 50s right now, and they've been swinging a hammer for 25 years, and they think that's all that they're going to be able to do, or that's their destiny. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you love swinging the hammer, good for you. I know me, like, yes, it was satisfying to take someone's house and transform it. Like maybe if we're doing because we used to do a lot of windows and doors, we put in a beautiful new patio door that they didn't have, right? They had a window there, we would open it up, and then we would put a patio door in there, and it would open it up to their backyard. And it was satisfying to watch that, right? And to watch them be so happy. Or, we used to do vinyl siding. So we used to do the house looked like crap. The paint was peeling, and we would come in and put a whole new, face on this house, and people would walk away and be so happy. And that was satisfying for me, but it was hard work, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how am I ever going to, number one, make more money so I could live better, but also how can I have more freedom? And this isn't all unicorns and rainbows and all of that either. I will tell you, there was definitely a lot of struggles along the way and a lot of things that I learned. But I remember having like a couple $100 in my savings account and thinking to myself, like, am I ever going to be able to save for retirement? Am I ever going to be able to save to go on a bigger vacation? Am I ever going to be able to take my family places, that are outside of the state? Like a lot of that stuff. And I didn't think I could, to be honest with you, because I thought this was the answer. This thing right here was the answer for me to be able to make extra money. And I remember to make extra money, I would do side jobs. So like I would work for my father for like 50, 60 hours a week. And then from there, I would do some side work. And I remember there's one job that I did that my wife wanted, it's funny, my wife wanted to get the LASIK eye surgery when that first came out. And I believe it was, at that time, was like $4,000. And I was like, there's no way we can afford that. Like, there's no way. And when I say like we were living paycheck to paycheck, and I think back then my take-home pay was like $800, maybe $900 a week. And that was if I worked 20 hours overtime. And so how am I going to make $4,000? Well, then I started to do side work. I started to do things on a Saturday or on a Sunday. And I remember this one job that I did. I had a guy ask me, I was on the job. Now, we didn't do decks and stuff for my father's company. We strictly did like windows and doors and siding. We actually got into some bathroom work, but we didn't do any decks. So they were okay with me taking jobs that they weren't going to get, right? Or that they didn't want. And so I went ahead, and this guy had said to me, hey, do you know anybody who builds decks? I go, I do. And so I remember this. I built a deck that was actually 8 foot off the ground. Okay, so imagine like a split level ranch house, and it had the walkout basement. And he wanted, I believe it was like a 16 foot long by maybe 10 foot out. It could have been even longer. It could have been 20 by 10, something, or 20 by 12. But it was up in the air. So I had to go ahead and estimate all of the lumber. I had to get a building permit. So I had to submit like a plan that I had to draw out with all of the specs. And again, this was a kid that barely graduated high school and never thought that I would be able to, gosh, I remember I couldn't even, when I graduated and I started working for my father, I barely could read a tape measure. That's how bad it was, and I learned, of course, but it was pretty embarrassing. But, so anyway, back to the deck story. So I told the guy that I could do it. I estimated everything out, and I wanted to make $4,000 on that job. So I might have bid it at like, I don't know, the materials might have been like $3,000, at the time, might have been like $3,000 to build this deck. And I was like, okay, I need to make $4,000, so let's go $7,000. So I bid it, and the guy said, sure, when can you start? I said, I can start next weekend. And so what I did was I went there after work on a Friday, and I dug the footings by hand, by the way. So I dug the footings, and we were in upstate New York at the time, and your footings had to be down at least 36 to 42 inches to get below the frost line. And so I had to dig these things, and I always went a little heavy, so I'd go 48 inches just to be safe. And I poured all the concrete that night, mixed it in a wheelbarrow. Yeah, that's it. I mixed it, and I basically dumped all the concrete in there, and then I went ahead and filled them, and I put the bolts up through, and then everything's set up so when I was coming back Saturday morning, everything was going to be ready so I could start building the deck. And my goal that day was to work about 8 to 10 hours to get everything built other than the decking. And I'm pretty sure I accomplished that. And then the following day, I came in and I did all the decking, all the railings, the stairs, everything. And then I think maybe one night after work, I came over and just like buttoned things up. And made, on that job, I made $4,000. But I worked my butt off. And that was on top of the 50, 60 hours I was working for my regular day job. And I got my wife LASIK surgery eyes, so that was cool. But that was my life. I had 2 little kids at the time. I have 3 now. But I had my oldest, who's 29 now, who's got 2 kids. So I've got, grandbabies, and I've got my son who's 26. And at the time he was, I believe, like 1, maybe 1 or 2. So that was my life, though. That's what I thought. And you might be thinking to yourself right now, or maybe that sounds familiar to you. You're like, yeah, that's how I'm doing. I'm like job to job to job to job, right? Or maybe you're in a job that you're like, I can never see myself making more to do these things, to invest if you want to, or to go on vacation, or to take more time off. And a lot of this was money driven, but it was also time. Remember, I was working like 50, 60 hours a week, and I was doing these side jobs, and I had 2 little kids. So I'm like, how am I ever gonna see my kids? And that's where I started to feel trapped, and I started to feel like, how am I ever gonna get out of this job? And again, I thought that because I was working for my father's company that I was going to eventually own that company. And he had a partner, and they were just like a bad marriage. They just never got along. They never seen eye to eye. And yeah, it was just bad. But I thought that maybe one day I was going to have my father's half of the business. Well, long story short on that ended up not happening because my wife and I decided to, on the side, because her and I had a conversation, we're like, how are we ever going to get me, freed up to where you'll have more time? You can be home more, you're not working all the time. Plus, when I'd get home, I had 2 acres. We were on 2 acres that I built a home on the side in 11 months too, by the way. So how am I ever going to have time? I had to mow the lawn and all this, everything, right? And so I remember just sitting there and just like feeling like frustrated, like what are we gonna do? And then that's where we started a little part-time photography business because my wife and I had 2 little kids and we had went to get our pictures done and it was a disaster. And my wife always had a passion for photography. Never went to school for it, learned through books. Digital photography wasn't even a thing at that time. But a long story short on that is we ended up learning everything we could through books and trial and error, and we launched a little part-time business in photography, and we did photography for families. We ended up getting so busy that I was able to tell my father, hey, I think I'm going to be doing this full-time. And the crazy thing is he was there with that company, building that company for me. I didn't realize this till later. But when I told him that, he was like, Scott, go for it. I'm proud of you. I think it's the best decision you could have made because this business is not going to go where we thought it was going to go. I'm thinking about walking away too. And so I basically went in, gave my 2 weeks notice to his partner and my father, but my father already knew. And I'll never forget it. His partner looked at me and said, good luck. When you come back, you can let me know how it went, or something like that. Like he thought I was coming back because I had been there at that time for 7 or 8 years, and he didn't think I was going to be able to do anything else, even on my own. I never went back, by the way. Never went back. And the thing is, I had this little safety net built in that I was like, if I ever have to, I would never go back to them to work or him, but I always got this. I always got the hammer, and I always got my tools. and I know I could go out there and make money. All right, so I thought I'd just cut in here real quick because it's kind of ironic that I shot that video today. I came over here because my son needed a little help with his shelf here that fell down. I had to teach him a few things. I got his little hammer, that's cute, and then I got my screw gun, and we just went ahead and located some studs, and I gave him a little trick. I said, hey, if there's an outlet down here, we know there's a stud alongside that outlet. How do I know that? Because I did construction for 12 or 15 years, whatever it was. All right, you can watch the rest of that video. The crazy thing is that safety net, I never needed to use it because I started to learn business. And that photography studio is really what allowed us to do what we did online. It has to do with YouTube. I'll get there in a second. So we ended up in like 18 months, I left my job after we started that little part-time business. Left my job, and that turned into just about a six-figure business. Not at first. I think it took probably around 3 years, but we made a living, and I was home, and I'll never forget it. Never forget, I had my first cup of coffee that morning. I walked down the stairs in the house that I built, by the way, and walked down. I'll never forget, I walked into the kitchen. We had a window that looked out at our field, and I remember taking a sip of my coffee, and I said, wow, Scott, are you gonna be able to make this happen for real? Because this feels like I'm on vacation. Like, I got up, got the kids breakfast. I didn't have any hard commitments. We had appointments, so I knew when the appointments were gonna be. And then when that was done, I was doing the editing at that time. I was using Photoshop. Back in the day, Photoshop was big. It still is big, and I had to learn that in a book, in a big, thick book that I bought, and I learned everything there. YouTube was very, very new at that time. There wasn't a lot of videos. It was hard to watch videos because you had modem, you had dial-up. It was really, really hard. But I learned it. I learned enough to be dangerous, I guess. And yeah, so I learned Photoshop. I learned editing. I learned, from there, like how to deal with customers, how to create price lists, how to do pricing, how to do marketing. I started to learn all that stuff. I even started to learn some email marketing, which wasn't even really a big thing back then. But I started to kind of learn what it took to get people in the door, and then what to build or how to build a company, a small company, but a very, very lucrative one. And it taught me a lot, but it also taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that I love marketing. I loved business. I loved people. I loved, again, bringing people in and taking pictures of their family and being able to, see, got Maisie out here. Hey, Maisie, it's okay. She's barking at people walking by. That's her entertainment for the day. So taking pictures of someone's child as they're growing up. Like, we had kids that would come in, get their first communion, and then years later, we'd be taking their 16-year-old picture, right? Because they're gonna have a party, or maybe they're graduating. Like, it was crazy. So that was very, very satisfying. But I knew that I wanted to do something else with business and marketing. So that's where I started to kind of see other people doing stuff online. They were selling ebooks on how they did things. They were selling templates. And so I started to kind of look into that. I was like, how can I take what we've learned from this business, and how can I teach other people and share with other people? And it's crazy that here I am, gosh, over 15 years later, doing the same darn thing, just in a different industry, okay? So just let that sink in. The things that you've learned right now, you could take those and you can start something where, like this right here, like if you're a construction worker, you could show someone how to get side work. You could teach people how to do gutters. You could teach people how to, like whatever you're doing right now, you could probably teach other people out there who want to know how to do what you're doing. So that really taught me, after I got going here with starting on YouTube, is really how powerful it was. And so that leads me into YouTube. So I started YouTube, it was just kind of getting going, but I started YouTube over 15 years ago. And I started by me doing this, not as even good as this, where I shot a video telling my story about my wife and I, how I was a construction worker and how I went from construction worker to owning a photography studio. And then from there, how we taught ourselves. And basically I was gonna help anyone that wanted me to, what we learned through this process to shortcut it for them. And we built that business to a six-figure business rather quickly. I started on YouTube posting videos like I'm doing right now, and I've got another channel that I run, Brand Creators, which is just about to hit 100,000 subscribers. I had New Portrait Biz, which is the one that we started from this photography business, and that I think we had about 16,000 subscribers, but that 16,000 subscribers allowed us to really live free for 7 years, 7 years plus, and taught me a ton. But that first video, it was real, it was raw, it was very similar to what I'm doing right now and just sharing. And that built me an audience of people that wanted to learn what I had to share, all right? And so from there, I just delivered. I didn't like go, oh, now I gotta sell something. I just delivered. And at that time, I was following a guy by the name of Jeff Walker. He's the product launch formula guy. If you've ever heard of Jeff Walker, I mean, he's the OG of product launches, where you basically deliver value, you give people genuine value, you help people, and then you eventually sell them something because you've built up know, like, and trust. You build up goodwill. And I did that for like 6 months. And after I did that, I built a little email list too. It was like 800 email subscribers. And from there, I launched my first course, and we ended up doing $12,500 from a course that was $147 back in the day, and changed my life forever. Like that right there made me go, oh my gosh, Scott, what the heck just happened? Like, what just happened? Like, I thought I won the lottery. I was like, this can't be possible. Like, we used to do photography sessions in Q4 to make $12,500 that would carry us for 2 or 3 months because that was our busy season. And I just did it in 3 days. And then all of a sudden the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome comes in and they're like, Scott, are you gonna be able to do this again? And was this just a fluke? And then about 2 months later, I did it again. And that time I did about $20,000. I was like, holy crap, is this real? Am I in a dream? And I'll never forget it. We were in Subway. I don't know if you guys if there's a Subway near you or not, but we were in Subway and I was buying subs for the family that night. You know, we were living large, buying some subs. Guys, get anything you want. You can have anything you want tonight on that menu at Subway. And so I remember someone had left their wallet at home or something, didn't have any money. It wasn't like they were like, down and out or anything, but they just had, they didn't have it. And so I stepped up, I go, oh, I'll take care of theirs. I was like a big shot. And it made me feel so good that I was able to do that. And I didn't care because I paid for someone's, I think they had like 2 or 3 subs for their family and it might have been like $20. It's like, oh, I got that. Don't worry about it. Like, oh, give me your number. I'll send you the money. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. It'll come back to me. Don't worry about it. And they're like, oh, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, thank you so much. I'm so embarrassed. Like, don't be embarrassed. It happens to all of us. Don't worry about it. And so that was a cool moment. I'll never forget that. So from there, did that and built that into, all off the back of YouTube, by the way, kept YouTubing, kept putting up a video a week, 2 videos a week, and then started building my email list, which that's a big key in this whole thing. And that's the one thing I learned very early on is that email is huge. Like email is a driver even to this day. And I've done now, again, I hate throwing out numbers because I don't want it to seem as though I'm bragging, but I have done millions of dollars through email by sending emails, millions of dollars over the course of the years. But it's not like I did one email and I made $1 million, but I've generated a lot of money through email. So that's why, like right now, email is big, even to this day, okay? And on this channel, I'm gonna be doing more on email marketing, and actually, at the time of recording this, I don't have it available, but if you want me to send you some training, free training, or I'm going to maybe come up with like an email marketing guide. If you want that in the comments, just put email. All right, just write email. Then I'll know also that you watched, 20 minutes into this video, and just put email in there, and I'll send you some email marketing stuff when I have it ready. All right. So yeah, that made me, so this one move here, right? This one thing that happened, this one thing that if I never started that little photography studio with my wife and took a risk and just said, I'm quitting my job and then go for it, I never would have started that little photography business with my wife and learned that I love marketing and I love Photoshop and I love editing and I love helping people. Never would have happened. And then from there, I go ahead and get this idea that I'm going to go ahead and start this thing online because I saw other people doing it, and I'm like, okay, let me give that a shot. I did that, and then all of a sudden you do $12,500 in 3 days after, of course, I've been YouTubing for 6 or 7 months, built a little email list, and then from there, that kind of changed my life for the next 7 years, where I wasn't making a living from in my studio anymore. I was making a living teaching people online and selling my templates and things like that, which was just mind-boggling. But now this whole entrepreneurial bug is kind of in me now, and I didn't realize it until that all happened. And so then I'm starting to, chase, shiny objects and stuff. I'm like, oh, you can, build a website and do affiliate stuff and just build a website just for that. And I kind of went down that road and that didn't work. And, oh, you can just start a podcast and then make money. I started a podcast that didn't work. Although I did start a podcast and it worked really good. I'll share that one here coming up. But, so I was testing and playing, but still doing, my other thing. But I also started to say to myself, do I want to be the guy that's teaching photography for the rest of my life? And I was like, no, I don't. I want to help people with online business. But I don't know. How am I going to do that? Why are people going to listen to me? Other people are already doing it. I mean, I'm just a small guy here, just, making a living doing what I'm doing. So I kind of just shelved that. But then I started hearing about people, another little shiny object came to me, and it was like people were starting to sell on Amazon what they call private label. And private labeling is where you take a product and you can source it from China or anywhere, and then they can brand it with your logo and or your branding on it, and you can mix it up and change it a little bit, modify the product, and then sell it on Amazon. And people were crushing it. So I was like, let me go ahead and look into this. So I started looking into it, and there wasn't really any podcasts that were talking about it. There was a couple, but they weren't dedicated to it. They were just talking about that one opportunity that one time. And so I was trying to learn more. I was trying to binge content, and I couldn't find any. And I'm like, man. So I just said, I'm just going to wing this thing and do what I know and see if it works. So I'll never forget it. My wife and I, we purchased $5,000 in inventory, and we started selling those fitness bands. The ones that you see in like a 5-pack, and you kind of put them around your legs, and you kind of do these exercises and things. Because we were into fitness, and I'm like, I'll go with them. They seem like they're selling well, and so launched them. And oh my gosh, within 90 days, we had brought in 40 grand in sales. But then I also realized that inventory is kind of an issue, because now we just sold $5,000 worth of inventory. We got to buy more. We just made money, brought it in. We had to pay fees and all that stuff. And we made some profit, but then the profit we rolled back into inventory. So I started scaling this thing up. And I think our first year we did over $300,000 in revenue and probably netted probably 100. And I was like, holy crap, right? But after I started getting some success here, I'm like, I think I got to share what I'm doing, even though I'm not an expert. And so I started a podcast at the time called the Amazing Seller Podcast. And that podcast took off. People were waiting for this. It was like I came in at the right time. Some people could say you got lucky. No, I was there at the right time. It just happened that I got there, and I was there. And that thing blew up. Well, that changed my life again. And it actually helped me make my first 7 figures online. And I basically did exactly what I did in the photography on the channel. Is I started a podcast, and then from the podcast I started posting those podcast episodes. They were only audio. I started posting them on YouTube, just as audio, by the way, and I built that channel up to 25,000 subscribers just from audio files, a little bit of tutorials here and there, but the main thing was my audio podcast. And I podcasted 60 episodes before I made $1. Okay, and that's the important thing that I want people to understand is like a lot of times you're doing a lot of this work and you're not going to get paid for a while. And that's okay, and I know that because you're audience building. This channel right now, Live Video School, I think we made our first $100 earlier than I ever have through an affiliate commission. I mean, I'm using the Osmo right now. I'm using the DJI microphone, and I talk about that stuff. And if you guys want to check that out, you can see that in the description. But basically, all that I did was mention it a few times, and then it's through an affiliate link, because I've learned through the years that if you're going to talk about products, you should probably use an affiliate link. And we ended up selling, I think, about maybe $102 worth so far of that. So yay, right? But that podcast, all I did was build the audience for, gosh, months, right? I did 64 episodes. I'll never forget it, because the first thing I sold was a tool that you would use called Jungle Scout that you would use to find products that were selling well on Amazon. And by the way, another little fun fact here, again, I haven't really shared this much, and again, I don't like talking numbers a lot because it seems like you're bragging, but in Jungle Scout over the years, I basically got paid just under $1 million in affiliate commissions from that. Crazy, insane. But it started with building the audience and then, like I said earlier. But that also helped me launch, probably about 2 months after that, I launched my first course, and I sold it for, I was selling it, I wanted to sell it for $400, I think it was, or $500, something like that. I was advised that that's what I should charge for that, because there's a lot of other programs charging $5,000 for that. And I'll never forget this. I did a live webinar, and I basically invited everyone that was on my podcast and people that were on my email list at the time, and I invited them. And I think I had about 500 people show up live to that. And I announced that I was thinking about doing a course on what we had done to be successful on Amazon, And I said I'm going to have 25 people in this first group, first 25. They're going to get it at a discount. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link here in a second, but I want to tell you what's going to be involved. And so I basically just shared like an outline of like what I was going to teach over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And I said it's going to be $497. It's going to eventually sell for $997. But if you'd like to get access and be one of the first 25, go ahead and sign up. And I kid you not, in 1 minute, yeah, that's right, 1 minute, we sold 28 spots. And the reason why is because my partner, Chris Schaefer, he couldn't turn it off fast enough. Like he was literally trying to turn off, or make that page go inactive. And so we said, all right, so we had, we're not going to say 3 of them. We're not going to, it wasn't about the money either. It was just like they got in, so we're not going to take it away from them. So there was 28 people in our first ever group there, and that was over $12,000 there. That they basically paid us to build a course. That course went on to do millions of dollars in sales. We did a webinar every single week for probably almost 2 years. And every time we would do one, we would have 400 or 500 people live. Sometimes it was the same people. They just wanted to come through. We would train. We would do a training for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we would do a little light pitch at the end, and then we would answer Q&A, and it was like clockwork. Every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, everyone in the house knew to be quiet, don't go on the internet, and we would do that, and we would sell. Some nights we would do $25,000, and it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But then I started to feel the itch, and I started to feel, I don't want to be the Amazon guy. Sound familiar? Right? I said that about the photography thing. I'm like, I don't want to be locked into just being Amazon specific. And I started to feel burnout because at that time I had written a book, The Take Action Effect, which I'll link that up if you guys are interested. It's a really good book, by the way. It tells a lot of this story that I'm sharing here today in more detail. There's also an audio version of that book, but it's called The Take Action Effect, which basically means if you take action, you're going to have results, kind of like I'm sharing with you right now. Did construction, learned, leveled up, went and did my own business with photography, learned, leveled up, right? So everything was taking action, and then the effects of it is all of the things that we're talking about here today that kind of like transpired because of it. So yeah, wrote a book in 12 months. I put on a live event with 200 people in the audience, sponsors. That was before the pandemic. I had a mastermind that people were paying $25,000 a year to be a part of. Now, with all that being said, that was awesome. And it was a lot of things that I never thought I could achieve. But it did one thing that made me realize that I not necessarily wanted all that. And that was burnout and stress. And I actually had a little bit of a scare. I had shingles. I had this thing on my neck, and it would come down, and I was like, what is going on here? And I went to the doctor, and they said, it's shingles. Are you stressed? And I'm like, yeah. And I was under 50 at the time, and they're like, you usually don't get that until you're 50. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, maybe your body's telling you you're 50. And I'm like, whoa. And my wife's like, you know what? We got to chill here. Well, I listened a little, but still kept kind of grinding. But still had this little thing in my head saying, like, I don't want to be the Amazon guy, but this is a good little wave I'm on right now. And so I remember I was at one of our mastermind meetings that was $25,000 per person, and I was getting up that morning, getting ready, and I noticed I had another little line going down my neck, and I'm like, oh boy. So I messaged my wife. I'm like, can you do that online doctor thing and just tell them I got another bout of this shingle thing and I need to get that prescription immediately? And so she did, and she ran it up to me. We were having it at my lake house, which is a whole nother story I could share with you guys too about how I own a lake house. How does Scott Voker own a lake house? Yeah, it's just mind-boggling to me, and it's an Airbnb that's making money, and it's been the best investment I've ever been able to have in my life. Like, it's just mind-boggling that I'm taking a step back and I'm like, Scott, is this real? Like, you're the kid that was the self-doubt issue and imposter syndrome, and I just thought you would have been swinging a hammer. It's crazy. So yeah, I've got more stories on that I could share. So I got to think where I was going with that. So at that point, things were really going, but I had this other bout of shingles, and that's where I had that scare, and I said, okay, this is not worth it. Like, this is not worth it, Scott. You got to scale back. What are you going to do to kind of like pull yourself back? So at the time, like, financially, I was good. Like, I mean, I had made more money than I ever thought I was ever going to make. I had made some good investments. I kind of took a year off, to be honest with you. Now, I wasn't off. Like, I was kind of going through the reps. I was just doing. And I just was like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just not going to push hard. I'm not going to promote hard. I'm not going to try to build much. I'm just going to try to maintain. And I'm going to really just kind of make my work week really, really light, And I should probably also say too, like, through this entire thing, once I went online, like, full time, I kind of felt like I've been semi-retired, because I feel like I can come and go as I please. I can take a vacation whenever I want. I can go to my daughter's beach volleyball. I saw all of my son's basketball games when he was in high school and Little League and, coaching and all of the things that I was able to do. We're going to let Maisie bark that one out. Hey, Maisie. It's okay, Maze. So, so I really kind of feel like I've been semi-retired, and I still do to this day right now. Like, I had a video that I did here that was like, why I'll never retire, because I never feel like I'm going to stop doing this. Like, I'm never going to stop serving. I'm never going to stop doing this. And the result of doing this is money will follow. It's just a matter, I'm not in a rush, but I know money will follow. I know from this channel, we're building true relationships with people. People are going to start to know, like, and trust us, hopefully. And those people, the right people, will eventually have things that we'll offer them, whether it's a coaching program, whether it's a group coaching. It's my son and myself doing this channel. So this is also a little bit of a dream for us to do together. Here I am, 52, my son's 26, and we're now doing this channel together. And we got visions of us, like, doing at the lake house, like doing like a video, like a YouTube video content creation workshop. Like, we're going to probably do one of them in our future, and we're excited about that. But we know that it's going to take time to build the audience. So my point in sharing that story was, like, here I was at the top, right? and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, no, it's not. What do I really want? And we've heard this before with people, they're like multi-millionaires, and then they take a step back and they're like, you know, is this what I thought it was going to be? And you're like, no, I kind of want to go back to the basics and get things simple again. So like literally like right now, my day consists of, you know, like I get up in the morning, I do my morning stretches by the pool. I kind of sit there without like looking at my phone. I try to get some natural light in my eyes. From there, you know, and I have a cup of coffee, and then from there, I come inside and I start my work day. And I generally will work for an hour, and then from there, I take a little bit of a break, and then I come back for another hour, and I'm generally going to be done by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, give or take. Sometimes I'm doing something at 4 or 5 because we might have a promotion that we're running, and I do a little something there, but it's not work to me. It's fun. Like all of this is fun. Like me sitting here, having a cup of coffee, and it's a Saturday right now, the time I'm recording this, is fun for me. Like I'm sharing this, I'm enjoying this, and hopefully you're enjoying it. And I want to reach one person. And I think that's for anybody. If you're thinking to yourself like you can't do this because you're too old or whatever, like no, you're not. Like you have something to share, and just try to connect with that one person. Like that's the big thing I think that a lot of people they miss. They try to go right for the money. Right? Or they have a video that pops and then all of a sudden they try to create a course. Like, no, like I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. I don't advise doing that. Why? It doesn't feel good, but also because I know that that doesn't work. I know it might work short term, but it's not going to work long term. And I'm all about the long term. So kind of going into the whole pivot thing and like, you know, I pivoted, I took a little bit of a break and kind of came out and I'm like, what are we, I renamed my podcast from The Amazing Seller to Rock Your Brand because I'm all about like 80s metal, you know, 80s rock. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds like a cool name. It's like, you know, rock your brand. All right, let's do it, you know? And so I changed the podcast to Rock Your Brand. It also allowed us to talk about more than just Amazon. So we could talk about e-commerce. And then, you know, now we're really focusing on brand creators. That's our main business now is, you know, helping people with Etsy and their e-commerce. But again, am I going to be the Etsy guy for the rest of my life? No, I'm not. Am I always going to talk about e-commerce? Probably in some way, shape, or form. But my heart right now is like I want to talk video. I want to talk building a business on the back of YouTube, not having 1 million subscribers and being able to do it, because I'm proof of that. I'm proof that, you know, you don't have to have a really high, you know, degree. You don't have to have gone to college. You don't have to have this prestigious job. You don't have to have, you know, massive speaking skills. You don't have to, you know, have the right thing to say every time. You can just show up and be real and be authentic, and you can build a really solid business on the back of a loyal audience. There's an article out there that was written, a blog post that was written years ago called True 1000 Fans. I'll link that up in the description as well. That there really made me realize, and it made me go, oh yeah, I know, because I've done that. It's where if you can attract and really nurture 1,000 true fans, 1,000 people, you'll get paid for the rest of your life. And so that's the goal always, is like, how do you find your core 1,000? And that's really what we're doing here, even on this channel. If you want to be part of that, you know, you can subscribe to the channel. And if you want to become even more of a loyal fan, you can, you know, in the comments put email, and I'll send you some resources about email, and you can give us your email, and we will be able to communicate with you a little bit further and deeper. So yeah, so that's really the gist of what I wanted to share today. Is that, you know, you don't have to, you know, have, you know, like a video degree. You don't need an editing degree. Like now it's even easier than it has ever been, because videos like this right here are doing much better than the ones that are all edited and slide-ins and jump cuts and, you know, graphics moving and sound effects and all that stuff. It's not necessary. And if you're over 40, it's definitely not necessary, because over 40 people like me, we don't really like that stuff, right? It's kind of cheesy, or it's kind of seems too flashy, right? We want like just old school, like just keep it real, you know. And that's really what it's all about for me. So I just wanted to sit down here and, well, have that cup of coffee with you, share my story, show you my hammer, and let you know that if you're a blue collar person, or just someone that feels trapped or stuck in the job and want to get out, I'm here to tell you and kind of show you myself as proof that I had none of that. Like, I had none of the things that would make you so-called successful. But I really feel like I am successful in life. I am rich in life. Not rich necessarily like you would say, oh, you're a multi-millionaire or you're a billionaire. No, I'm rich in life, meaning I get to kind of do what I want to do, you know, and I do feel like I'm semi-retired. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think I'll ever call myself retired. I'm not going to ever just sit back and just not do anything, right? Like, I love helping people. This is what I do. And it just happens that there could be money made on the back end of it. So I'm going to keep doing this. So if you've enjoyed this, let me know. If you've watched all the way through, let me know that too, because this one here was a long one. I didn't know if I should do this, but people were telling me I should. They're like, Scott, you got to share that story, because there's a lot of people out there that don't think that they have what it takes, or that they're trapped, or that they're stuck. And I wanted this video to be my way of showing you one of the underdogs, right? My son and I, we kid, like we want to actually come up with some t-shirts that say proud underdog. Because I think being an underdog is actually a privilege, and it's an advantage, because it makes you work harder if you want to, work harder to get what others don't think you can have, right? There's a girl in beach volleyball called, or her name is Kristen Nuss. She's 5'6". She just went to the Olympics. They didn't win, but they did very well. They got in the top 16, and she's 5'6". If you don't know about beach volleyball, 5'6", you ain't gonna make it, right? You ain't gonna make it. But she's proof. And she's an underdog, because technically you should be at least minimum. A defender in beach volleyball needs to be 5'8", 5'9" in the pro level. And the blockers are going to be 6 foot plus. She's 5'6", and she plays like she's 6 foot tall. She's awesome. And I love using her as an inspiration, and she is an underdog, but she's a proud underdog. And she says, I want every kid out there that's 5'6" that doesn't think that they can make it. I want to show them that I can do it, you can too. And that's what I am doing right here. I'm a proud underdog. And, you know, I can do it, you can do it. Trust me, not the smartest guy, not the sharpest tool in the shed. But I'm pretty sharp, and I think I've got pretty good common sense. I think that's one thing that I got that my father passed along to me, and I appreciate that. So hopefully this has helped you. If you want to hear a little bit more of a condensed version of how I was able to, well, take 1,000 subscribers on a small YouTube channel and turn that into, well, my first ever $12,500, and how that changed my life forever, I'm going to go ahead and put that video right here. You can watch that video. It won't be as long. It'll be a little bit more, well, it'll be shorter. So watch that video next, and I'll see you there.